What's up, fungal associates? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary, the podcast about trees and other related topics. I am one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson, and
you're sitting next to Casey Clapp. I'm Casey Clapp, another host. We're back, Alex.
Casey, we're back.
I was flipping through a few different resources here, and that is why, because one, I was looking at and I was like, this is not what I thought it was, and it's because I was on the wrong tab.
Oh, Casey.
Which is why I was looking down when you started the everything.
I see.
Hi.
Casey, when you say we're back, you not only mean we're back with a new episode of Completely Arbortrary.
Yes.
We're also back from vacation.
From physically being away from our desks, so to speak.
I mean, you were definitely away from your desk. I was still a handful of times still at my desk.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But you were not at you were at a different desk, metaphorically.
Yes,
speaking,
metaphorically,
perhaps.
I was at a completely different desk.
Yeah.
I was at music desk.
Yes, I was sitting in a vehicle, on a bike, or walking.
Yes,
slept in a tent for a while.
That's right. You went up to Vancouver Island.
I did. Went to Vancouver Island. Saw a lot of cool trees. Swam in some lakes. Didn't go in the ocean, but then walked slightly in the ocean. Doesn't quite count.
Tell me this.
Yeah.
You get to choose one, okay?
Oh, okay.
River, lake, or ocean?
Oh, can I ask a follow-up?
You may.
What? How big is this river?
River is like Sandy River size.
I'll take river.
All right.
Yeah, every day of the week.
Me too.
Yeah, I think they're the greatest. I was going to ask. Okay, see,
I'm a river man.
I like that they're moving through. They're going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's some fresh water.
It's super fresh, and if you want to find a spot, a thing, a river, most of them, the Sandy River size, will have a little spot for everything. There's one that has little rapids you can walk across.
Right.
There's big ones that you can jump in. There's ones that are like slow and cool and calm with like a little beach on it. There's everything you need.
That's right.
Whereas a lake, it's all the same, kind of for the most part. And I know, don't at me, people. I get it.
I do feel like there's less variability in a lake.
Yeah, I think that's a fair.
Also,
I think it's a fair thing.
Lakes have fish that have been there for centuries, and they shit indiscriminately. And they die indiscriminately, and they rot in that water.
That's okay. It's an ecosystem, though, right? Don't you think?
I'm not. Yes, of course. It's a beautiful thing.
All right.
I just don't want to put my body in it.
Okay, that's fair.
But a river, I put my body in, and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting clean. I know that's not really the case.
It's because it's moving through, you know?
Yeah.
There's a certain sort of, there's something to a thing moving past you. Taking a bath versus a shower.
Exactly, you know? Casey. Yeah. That's a great insight. Lakes are baths, which can be good.
Yeah.
Rivers are showers.
Yes.
Ocean is car wash.
You just never want to be in a car wash?
No.
Oh, man, I love the ocean, though. Oceans are fantastic.
Oceans are beautiful, and I love all the ocean animals. They do frighten me a bit.
Yeah, okay, that is fair. They are very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the ocean. I didn't go this time because I didn't know when my next shower would be.
Oh.
And oftentimes if I go in the ocean for too long, then I come out and then I have like a salt like layer on me.
Yeah.
And then it like is very uncomfortable to wear clothes afterwards. I have to like usually take a shower.
Also, I would think not great for your skin.
I don't know if it is or not. I feel like it would be actually. You get
really?
Maybe
dry out your skin.
I don't know. I guess
moisture.
Like what if you take a bubble bath or something with like salts in it?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how I feel about it. It's not salt in the same sense where you're like you're dehydrating your skin. You know, I don't know. But I enjoy the ocean immensely.
More of like a what's that called? Exfoliant.
Yeah. Something that's good. That's like rehydrating your skin.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I'd really love to do someday? I'd love to go to the Dead Sea.
Oh yeah, and just like float
around.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
I'm already naturally kind of buoyant, so I would love to. Just see what happens. Maybe I'd sink.
Yeah. Well. I don't think so. I think everything floats there. Like it's kind of its thing.
You know what Pennywise says?
What?
We all float down here. He was from the Black Sea.
Yes. Wait, Pennywise, the guy from the sewers. Yeah, I see. Okay, yeah, he's from the Black Sea. Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
He's serious, folks. I didn't know this. Hey, Alex, have you ever been to the Great Salt Lake?
That's such a stretch. Yeah, I think I've seen the Great Salt Lake.
You know, you can also float in that too.
Casey, isn't there like no water there?
Oh yeah, it's very slowly, actually kind of somewhat rapidly drying up.
Okay.
Another thing to add to the clock on climate change. So, figure that out. But No, there's plenty of water there.
Okay, I think the part that I saw was just like a salt lake bed.
Oh yeah,
Like a cracked, that cool cracked thing.
It is. And if you walk, like you have to walk like several hundred yards out into it before it starts getting like deep enough.
Okay.
And yeah, I have to actually say, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. There's no possible way I'm getting you anywhere close to the Great Salt Lake.
Why?
Because there are, it's like briny in there because it's so salty. And there are these flies that live along the edge.
Oh.
And I think even somewhat on the water. The further you go out, the fewer there are. But yeah, they live on the edge of the water, and they are like a plague, Alex.
Wow. Like in terms of the volume of them?
Yes. Yeah. At least where I was the last time I was there. Like you walk up, and it's just like they kind of are like a sheet that kind of unfolds in front of you as you're like walking through, because they're like, I don't want to get close to this.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I set down I think my shoes or my shirt or something like that, and this is years and years ago, and just set it on the beach, went in, and I was like, I got to float in this water, this is pretty cool, and then came out, and I was like, where are my clothes at? And then as I kind of walked around, all of a sudden this sheet of flies left, and I was like, oh, there they are, cool, and then just kept walking.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't think I could get you past the vanguard of insects.
I bring me some binoculars, I'll watch you have fun in the lake.
But then you can't float in it, Alex. That's the whole point.
Maybe I would just you're right. I would not do that.
Okay.
Casey, let's talk about a tree, eh?
Hey, let's do it, Alex.
And I say "a" at the end of that sentence kind of coincidentally.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about the Serviceberry.
We are. This is a good one.
And let's be more specific. We're talking about the Canadian Serviceberry.
Yes, we are. Now, this is kind of a fun little tree. It's another one where I think you can call it a tree, but then other people would be like, that's a bit of a stretch.
Oh, sure.
It doesn't grow very tall. Often it has multiple stems.
Mm-hmm.
It is an understory thing. It like sits in hedges. It has a lot akin to, say, the hazelnut or the filbert, or say the a hawthorn or something like that.
Okay.
Where it creates like these little copse, these little like clonal hedge groups of just like clumps of things, you know?
All right. Well, let's imagine that you and I, as we do every episode,
please,
Casey.
yes.
How about we're walking? How about we're you and I are sitting in a barrel going down Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And we get closer to the falls, and I say, Casey, what's that over there? And you look, and there's some serviceberry trees. I almost said serviceberry bushes.
Wow.
Holy shit.
It's all right. You can say that if they're young, right?
I'm going to get in trouble with the bush people. People don't like us saying bush.
No, they don't. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, shrubs.
But
these are trees. Gosh. And we see some serviceberry trees. Casey, right before our imminent doom, let's ID this tree.
All right, I'm going to have to talk quick in this situation, but I'm going to slow down. I'm going to go to halftime.
Right.
So that everyone can hear. But essentially, Alex, let's slow the river for a second.
Oh, I like this.
Let's look gently out to the shoreline. And if we are in, let's say, springtime, the flow is heavy with the snowmelt.
Oh, the flow is heavy. God,
very cold.
What a visceral statement.
Yes, it is. We are looking at Amelanchier canadensis.
One more time.
Amelanchier canadensis.
Amelanchier canadensis.
Yes.
Now, I've heard canadensis before.
Yes.
What is that?
That is of Canada. So anytime there's an ensis at the end of something, it means that it's from the place that it is now the suffix of.
I see.
So like, I think, or like you could say organensis, or I've heard a lot of chinensis, where it just kind of works because, chinin, and then they just add the cis on it, and it works really well. You don't have to like really change the spelling of the word or anything. It ends properly with an N. Okay.
Now what about talus, like occidentalis?
Occidentalis means it's kind of the same thing, but like Canada is not a Latin term, so Latinizing it makes it canadensis. It is of Canada, whereas occidentalis is already a Latin term for Western.
Okay.
So when they say occidentalis, the Western this, the Western that.
I see.
So it's the same thing, but you already have a Latin term that is describing something rather than Latinizing a term saying it's of this specific space. Not just from over that way, which is the West.
Got it.
It's of this specific spot.
Got it.
So this is Amelanchier, and Amelanchier is actually, I think, a French term. It's a French provincial term for this plant.
Oh.
So my assumption is when they first came over, they said, Amelanchier, and that's what they called it.
Okay. Can
So-
you say that in a French accent?
Amelanchier.
Amelanchier?
Yeah, I don't think, Amelanchier, I think would be it. You have to do the r at the end of the
Oh,
R.
yeah, like they're
Yeah.
choking on their R's.
Yeah, exactly. Amelanchier.
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 Amelanchier canadensis.
They called it Canada even back then.
Yeah, they sure did. Yeah, good for them. You know what? I don't know where Canada came from, Alex.
Oh, that's a good etymology
Yeah.
research.
Someone at me for that, though.
Yeah.
I want to know.
I want to know too.
So the fun thing is, so we call this the Serviceberry.
Yes.
We call this the Serviceberry. Other people call it the shad-blow serviceberry, the shadbush, the junebush, the juneberry.
Wow.
If you're in Western Canada, they call it the Saskatoon.
A tree of many names, huh?
I love all the names of all the serviceberries. I don't know why, but it makes me so happy that there's so many like weird names. Shadwood, shad-blow, serviceberry, sarviceberry, juneberry, sarvice, sugar plum, wild plum, chuckle pear.
The chuckle pear.
Yeah, chuckle pear.
That's like oh man, chuckle pear. What a great. Hey, that's some good folk taxonomy.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah. And
chuckle pear.
And I just don't know why we have so many weird names for it. Like usually one name sticks and they just
Yeah.
call it that.
Right.
But this apparently like several different names, they just kind of went for it.
At most in the tree world, I think I've only encountered trees with maybe 3 or 4 names or 2 or 3.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Like it's not.
You just
there's not a
listed
lot.
like 12.
There's too many. There's
a
just
lot.
way too many. But they all kind of mean something. We'll talk about that a little later. But first,
right.
I want to tell you what you're looking at.
Yes,
here.
yes.
So the first thing you see, of course, we're talking about it in springtime. This is a family member of the roses.
Ah.
So it has the classic rose, 5 petals, 5 different parts, 5 sepals, 5 petals, or at least in multiples of 5.
Rosaceae.
Yes, that's right, Rosaceae. And the petals are kind of interesting where they are really, really long. So usually you would think of seeing a flower where everything kind of comes together, and it's all like one cohesive unit. If you draw a circle around it, the circle kind of is full of the flower. There's not a lot of space that's not flower in that circle. If you do that around the edges of a serviceberry, then you end up getting like huge swaths in between these long, skinny petals that are just not to the flower. They're just space. So the petals are really long and lanceolate, skinny petals that go out and look kind of like paddles from a canoe or something like that.
Interesting.
So they come out and they look really like feathery. Like they just kind of pop. And then the flower inside, the little sepals and the little things it's all way smaller. So it's a very small flower except for these gargantuan, huge, showy petals that come out. But the flowers themselves are still small. So I think these get up to maybe 25 millimeters long. Like they're still not huge. Everything about the whole plant is very small. But if you zoom in, the petals are out of proportion.
The flowers look a little insectoid.
Ooh, yeah, like they look like they're like walking around like there's legs or something.
Like little water spiders.
Yeah, totally. It's just an insect that lost one leg, but it's still kicking. It's doing fine.
That's right.
Well, so that's the first thing we'll see in spring is just this. It's like a little cloud of white flowers.
It's
Every now and
beautiful.
then there's like a little bit of pink in the flower, maybe a little yellow streak, a little red, but for the most part they are just straight white. The flowers come out from the new growth, and they're usually terminal, so they're at the very end of the twigs. And then that makes it so everything's very full, and you don't have a lot of like green space. The leaves usually don't come out before the flowers. They are very early in the spring, and that's what makes them like kind of this unique flower. Well, no, I take that back. It's not unique. There are plenty of things that bloom really early in the spring, but each one of those things in and of themselves pop because everything else is like still dormant or isn't flowering so
Sure.
extremely. So these little guys will grow over in the eastern United States. Of course, we said it is canadensis. Surprisingly, most things that have canadensis at the end of them don't just grow in Canada.
Yeah, what's with that?
Yeah, they. My assumption is that the first people who came over and found them were like, "Oh, we're in Canada. This is the Serviceberry in Canada. We're going to call it the Canada Serviceberry, Amelanchier canadensis."
They just didn't know at the time that it grows all up and down that coast.
Most likely. Or if they saw it, they're like, "Yeah, I see a lot of these here." They were the first ones to name it, and that's where they happened to be.
Oh.
So even if they knew or didn't know it was growing down there, they would say, "It is here. I will name it of here."
I see.
So-
and the way that you name a tree after somebody else, like they named it after the place they found it first.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but like the eastern hemlock is the same thing, where it's Tsuga canadensis, but it grows all the way down to like the mountains of North Carolina and South Carolina, like way further south.
Okay.
So Canada shares a lot with the northern United States in terms of floristic patterns.
Interesting.
So that's the first thing you're going to see.
What a great term, Case.
Floristic patterns.
Floristic patterns.
Yeah, it's like wallpaper. You know?
That's like a great Yankee Candle flavor.
Oh yeah, totally. So you're gonna see those first. The flowers always come out right at the very beginning of spring, and then the leaves follow soon after. And I love the leaves of Serviceberry because they're alternate, they're simple, but they're very like obovate or ovate, so they just look like perfect little ovals.
Yeah.
And I think they're just so cute because of that. They got this tiny little point, serrated margins, and very obvious veins, but the veins aren't like the big thing that like really jump out at you.
They are very sweet.
They're just like the cutest little things. Like they look like children's leaves.
That's I think why I like them. They look like a very simple like drawing of a leaf.
Yeah, that's a
Like
perfect description.
An
Yeah.
illustration. I bet they would look very cute, like illustrated in sort of a youthful way.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. And they have like little brown twigs. But the thing that also I think really stands out for me, because as you know, I'm a guy who likes bark. And the bark of a serviceberry is, for me, a very telltale sign of how to identify them. Because generally, the bark of a tree can either be utility bark, where it doesn't really have much going on.
Sure.
Or it can be bark that has like kind of some unique characteristic to it. So the leaves, they're all alternate. They are these cute little pads of leaves that are coming out. That's your first sign. Then you look at the bark, and their bark always has like these striations going up.
Ooh.
So they're not really like something that jumps out at you, but if you look at it, you can see like these alternating striations of light and dark bark. And this is, of course, just where maybe there's old bark that didn't grow quite as fast, or these patterns just develop as the whole plant is growing outwards and slowly increasing its diameter. Same as any bark, but it doesn't create like big, deep furrows. They always stay really, really shallow. Because of that, you just get this really nice pattern that kind of looks like it's undulating, but it's not really undulating. It just looks like it because the colors change a little bit.
Kind of an optical illusion thing.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things like when you stand and look at it, it looks like one picture. And then if you kind of tilt your head to look at it in a different way, it kind of looks like something else.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, that's a good description. Those are called optical illusions.
They have one at the new Mario Land in Japan.
There's a Mario Land in Japan.
Do you want to go to this Nintendo Land with me?
Yes. That sounds amazing.
Oh my god, it looks so fucking cool.
I hope that they give you like some jump thing, like a bungee cord that attaches to you, so you can run, and then whenever you jump 16 times your height onto this thing. That would be great. That'd be sweet.
There is a Mario Kart ride that's AR, so you put on these goggles that project things in your vision, and it looks like you're riding in Mario Kart.
God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. It looks seriously gorgeous. They did a really good job.
Okay, yeah, we definitely need to go there.
I want to say something about this bark, in that it has that thing, really, really early on. I can't remember what tree we covered, but I noted that the bark kind of looks like stretch marks.
Ooh, yes, yeah.
Skin.
I remember this.
This picture in particular, and I'll post it well, I might post it if it's royalty free. Looks so much like stretch marks.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. Yeah.
And is that sort of what is happening with that bark?
I mean, if you think about it, the bark is you're always growing a new cylinder inside of an old cylinder, but the new cylinder is bigger by definition than the old cylinder that it's growing within.
Yes.
So the outer cylinder has to break or split open somewhere, usually multiple places. So if your cork cambium, which is the cambium section that builds the bark that actually puts out the new cork layer that is the protective bark layer, if that keeps up and produces bark at the same rate that the inner cambium is developing more xylem and phloem, then you have smooth bark like a beech tree. If that bark layer does not keep up and does not grow bark near as quickly as the tree is expanding out, then you get really rough and furrowed bark like, say, a Douglas fir or many of our different conifers and pine species.
Okay.
So in this case, it's basically just keeping up. You know, if you say a perfectly smooth bark tree where you can't tell any difference, that is a 1-to-1. And one that is growing like a Douglas fir, then that bark would be maybe a 0.5-to-1, where the inner thing is growing at a 1, but the bark is growing at a 0.5, so it just doesn't keep up.
Okay.
Essentially, one's growing twice as fast as the other.
Yeah.
In this case, I would say the ratio would be more like maybe 85-to-1 or 0.85. Yeah, 85 to 100. How do percentages work again, Alex?
I like the image of you saying all this to like the Dunkin' Donuts girl at the counter. She's like, yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know. Do you want a donut or not? Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Crazy tree guy.
Yeah, now that we got all that math sorted out, Alex. Well, essentially, yeah, it doesn't grow quite as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not furrowed in the way that like a Douglas fir is furrowed.
Yes, exactly.
But it is like it's pre-furrowed.
It's pre-furrowed, and it remains pre-furrowed the entire time.
Right.
Now I need to stop just real fast as a side note. Why did you choose Dunkin' Donuts?
You know what? There's like a meme online that's it's Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Oh, okay.
So which is just if after somebody says like a big rant about something that's basically meaningless. No offense. You respond, "Sir, this is a Wendy's."
Sir, this is a Wendy's,
implying that this person it's this funny image of this person just like venting to a random stranger at a Wendy's.
I see. Yeah, I gotcha.
So I had to pivot because I didn't want to use the meme.
Oh, I see.
Because it's kind of tacky and dumb. So I chose a Dunkin' Donuts.
That does make sense.
And you used to live in Massachusetts.
Yes, I did. And those were leaves grow.
The birthplace of Dunkin' Donuts and the birthplace of Serviceberry.
Yes, it all comes full circle. I get it now. All right.
Casey, speaking of service berries, let's talk about these berries. Is this the only tree? And answer me straight, Senator.
All right.
Is this the only tree that grows a berry? Because in my experience, berries come from little plants.
Oh, okay.
Like little like strawberry bushes, or strawberry plants.
Yep, which is an achene, not a berry.
Okay. Or like a blackberry bush. Go ahead.
Yeah, those are, it's an aggregate of berries.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Or blueberry bush, Yes. So these are shrubs.
I think a blueberry might be the only one of those that is an official berry, but I need to check my math on that.
There we have it. See, I thought blueberry was a poem.
Ah, yes. I don't think it is.
So I'm,
But here's, funny you say that, Alex.
I guess I'm talking culinarily. Berries culinarily.
Yes.
Is this the only verified tree that grows a berry?
No.
Okay.
Because it grows a poem.
Oh, Casey.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Alex. I was waiting for this the whole time as soon as you asked, and I was like, this is going to be a horrible thing that I have to break to him.
Yeah.
It is a poem.
Fair enough.
It is a poem in the same way that a poem is a poem, which is an apple, of course, and a pear, and I think a couple of hawthorns are poems. And also, the name of this tree is Serviceberry. That actually is initially comes from the Latin term for another tree called the sorbus, which is also known as the rowan or the white beam or the mountain ash. So service comes from sorbus, which is another tree in the rose family that also has palm-like fruit.
Wow.
So they saw that, and that's why they call it the serviceberry.
Interesting.
Yes.
I have a different etymological background for this, but we'll talk about that later. Maybe
we are, because I wanna hear about it.
Yeah, I think it might be the one you're thinking of. The way you're cheekily.
Yes, rubbing my fingers together like this. Yeah.
Well, Casey, you know what I mean.
Yes.
And so this is a berry that grows on a tree.
Yes, yeah.
Essentially, culinarily, colloquially.
Yeah.
Can you think of any others?
Okay, yeah, I totally can. I mean, obviously, hawthorns are a great example where they grow these little things that should be eaten.
Okay.
The mulberry tree will grow, of course, mulberries and things like that.
Yes.
And then I'd have to really sit here and think, because I know everyone's shouting into their radio right now, saying this tree and this tree and this tree. There are plenty. The madrone makes berries that are eaten by birds and things like that.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Well, I guess we don't usually call them the madrone berry tree or something like that.
That's true.
Usually, if they're a tree, they usually have a different name. Whereas if it's a tree that looks like something else, we call it the that berry or the that thing or something like that. Even the strawberry tree, which is another species closely related to madrone.
Maybe I'm getting hung up on it, but I'm using berry in the way that something you would put in a crumble,
Oh, yeah.
Madrone berry crumble isn't a classic dish.
Yeah, no, the flavor's a little bit different. I think I see what you're saying. You're asking, is this one of the only trees that we would collect all these things and actively, culinarily eat them?
Yeah.
And it grows at a tree level?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fine enough answer.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, Alex, technically speaking, it's a dumb question.
It was a pointless detour. But hey, if we can't have a platform for pointless detours in this podcast, then what has this all been about?
Yep, I agree. This is the platform for it.
So let's talk about the serviceberry, the service poem.
All right, the service poem. Oh, it's so good, Alex. I've never actually had one because every time I usually get the opportunity, I usually see them during springtime. That's when the plant is really saying, hello, I'm a serviceberry.
Right.
During the later spring or early summer, June of the juneberry name, is when these berries actually come out, or these pomes really start to become delicious. A lot of the ones I've seen have been growing in the streets. They're actually planted more often now than I have ever seen as a street tree.
Really?
For better or worse, that's the case. And
are they planted over here?
They are, yeah, here in Portland, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them. In fact, I can't think of exactly a spot right now, but I have seen them multiple times because they're small trees. These don't grow more than maybe 30 or 40, 50 feet, and that would be an incredible and an amazingly old, successful specimen.
Right.
Most of the time, they're not going to get more than 25 or 30 feet any place, anywhere.
I see.
So they're generally great for little planting spots that are underneath power lines or something like that.
Okay.
So you can just expect they're not going to get massive and they're not going to take over and they're not going to break up the sidewalk, get into the power lines, these kinds of things.
Outside their native range, do they behave exactly the same? They grow berries, they grow flowers?
Yeah, okay. Pretty much. Yeah. Flowers in the spring, berries in the summertime, and then gorgeous fall color that's an orangish, reddish color, very deep, very thorough during the fall.
Great.
But so again, during the summertime, as you asked, they make these little berries. Mm-hmm. They initially are a green color. And just like a poem, it is the stem tissue that is essentially the receptacle of the actual flower.
Oh, right.
That expands out and becomes fleshy and big and delicious.
The ovary, right?
Well, that's the thing. The ovary is what makes a fruit. That is the mature ovary is the fruit in every technical thing that I've ever read.
Yeah.
But in this case, the flower, so you have the stem, then you have this bit on the end of the flower called the receptacle. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the thing that connects the flower to the stem, but it's still officially part of the flower.
Okay.
The receptacle in this case, and the stem tissue that's connecting it, that is what becomes big and fleshy. And the ovary kind of falls and subtends into it, or it just expands up and around it.
Wow. Casey, in my mind's eye, I can imagine a little flower that has like a little bulge at its base.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the receptacle.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what turns in, that's where the fruit is harbored.
Precisely.
It's like the womb.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really weird. But yeah, you get the core of an apple. That is the ovary and the official end of the flower. Everything that is on the outside of that apple is stem tissue.
Wow.
And botanically speaking, this is the same as an apple in terms of the way the plant is creating this fruit.
Okay.
So it starts green, which is, totally makes sense. It's like this end of this tissue that normally would have chlorophyll in it or something like that. So it is starts in green. As it slowly matures, it becomes this like really like kind of pomegranate red. And pomegranate also, I believe, is a poem, so it has that same kind of like effect where it has those sepals at the very end.
Yes.
Then
I love that.
You get it slowly changes from this like gorgeous kind of pomegranate red to this deep dark purple black color, and that is when you know it's good, is when you have those final colors.
All right.
Yeah, it is a delight, and they're very beautiful. Like I don't know. I just like purples and blues and all these kinds of colors.
Yeah.
So it just, to me, is a really gorgeous looking thing. Like you find a really good dark blueberry and you're like, yes, I need that. It's the same kind of thing.
Or like what are they called, Case? Like a blackberry.
Yeah.
When it's like you see a few that have like tinges of red.
Yeah,
and you're
right.
like, oh, they're not quite ready. And then you find one that's like a deep, deep black.
Yeah.
And it just tastes like pure sunshine.
It's just sunshine and it's just perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what these are like. I haven't eaten them, like I said, because most of the time when I find them, either I'm not paying attention or I'm not looking to snack on a berry or a poem in those guys. But then other times I see them on street trees and they get this one disease that's like a rust disease. So the berries kind of look disoriented and out of shape, and they clearly have this fungus that grew on them. So it happens. Who really cares, in terms of us planting a street tree? Not really that big of a deal. The plant is still fine, but it makes them very clearly and obviously unedible.
Okay.
Or at least it doesn't look palatable and delicious to me, so I avoid them.
Casey, speaking of palatable and delicious, we have a friend named Amanda Spinosa. Mm-hmm. Amanda lives she lives in Serviceberry territory.
Oh, yeah. Over there in the Northeast. I guess this would be, we didn't even bring this up. It grows in like Canada from kind of everywhere in the east, in Ontario to the east, and then down almost all the way to Georgia. Like serviceberries grow all over the place over there. Lots of different species. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Amanda is on Instagram at which.of-the.wood. Amanda made a recipe for serviceberry crumble.
It looks so good, Alex.
It looks amazing. If you're listening to this on Thursday when it comes out, go to our Instagram. You can see the process video and the recipe there. I believe it's vegan. It looks incredible. She picked a bunch of serviceberries last spring and froze them, which is just such a clutch move.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, go check out that video and that recipe, and go check out Amanda. She does some really cool stuff. She's like she's one of these like forager chefs, Case.
Yeah, which is just like a spectacular thing for someone to be able to do.
Yeah. I sort of in another life, I would like to be that.
We can do that in this life, Alex.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not that much of an outdoorsman, And I feel like to forage, you really got to get out there. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, yeah, it just depends on where you do. You got to get out there, but it's like an hour and a half drive. Kind of get out there.
I can get out there.
Yeah, you don't have to go 100 miles.
I don't need to go walking through the bush to find some.
Exactly.
Find some food.
I don't know, Alex. You drive out there, you hike in, then you walk into the bush.
I see.
So there's a little bit of you're gonna have to get your hands dirty, so to speak.
I'll camp on the edge of the bush. You go into the bush.
Yeah. See, I was gonna say my biggest problem is that I'm not a big experimental cooker, where I'm just like, I see the recipe, I will do that and move on.
See, this is perfect, Casey. You forage, I'll cook.
That sounds great. Okay, perfect.
So go check out Amanda, witch.ofthe.wood, and go check out that video on her Instagram and hers. And Casey.
Yes, Alex.
We'll be right back with more Serviceberry talk after this very short break. Hey, do us a favor and listen to the ads. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Today we're talking the Serviceberry, the Canadian Serviceberry.
A.K.A. shadbush, A.K.A. sugar plum, A.K.A. thicket serviceberry, A.K.A. shad-blow, baby.
And Casey.
Yes, sir, Alex.
So usually we have some sort of story to tell in the second half of our episode.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This week, we just want, hey, you know what? Come around, kids.
Hey, get on over here.
I pop my collar and I sit like backward on the chair.
Yeah.
And I just say, let's have a jaw sesh.
Let's just be cool about this.
Yeah.
Let's
just chat.
There's no structure. We don't need this right here.
Yeah.
Stand on your desk.
I take my rule book and it says rule book on it.
Yeah.
And I go, you know what? I don't need this. And I toss it across the room,
Yeah.
but I toss it in a way where I'm like, this is a gesture, and I don't want to really
I don't
harm
want to.
it.
Yeah. It lands perfectly flat.
Yeah.
And, like spins into a nice little protected alcove.
Kind of a weak toss.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the Dead Poet Society of Completely Arbortrary.
Yes. So today we're just going to chat about the Serviceberry in a very casual way.
It's gonna be interesting. So I when we started this, I couldn't decide 100% what I wanted to talk about with this.
Yeah.
And I was reading through, and I came up with a lot of different things. And this kind of thing, if you ever go to the Missouri Botanical Garden.com, they have this thing called the Plant Finder. It's completely useless, and I don't actually support their website. It's not a very good website.
Wow.
But if you just Google and you try to find some species of plant, that species is at the Missouri Botanical Garden. They usually have a really good fact sheet about it.
Okay.
So it's great if you find it organically, although don't try to go to their search at the top of their website and make it work. I hate it. Let me give you an example. This is a little bit of a sidebar. Historically, Google would offer a service where they would be the search engine for your website, like the search functionality.
Yes.
But anytime you did that, it essentially was a Google search page filled with links that are only for that website. I don't know if you've ever done this. It's just basically a really awful way to do a search. It's like they don't have a search for their website where you just search right here.
It's just a Google search on their website.
Essentially, yeah. It even takes you elsewhere to if you feel like you're on a different page.
Yeah, that sucks.
So I don't support it. I think it's silly, and I am so happy that Google does not do that anymore. And if they do, put it the way of Google Glass and just let it die.
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
R.I.P.
It needs to go. Okay. Anyway, so I'm looking through this, and looking through the Missouri Botanical Garden. At the very bottom, they say problems, and they just give you a list of here are the diseases or things that go down with these different species of plants.
Okay.
No serious insect or disease problems. There's that rust, the little leaf spot that I was telling you about, that sometimes gets on the berries. And that's really just kind of it. They don't really do anything. So I was kind of like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is a great tree. It is a tree that, like I said earlier, also is getting planted more and more in the cities.
Yeah.
It does well. It's one of our native species here, or we have a native species in Oregon. We call it the Amelanchier alnifolia.
Alnifolia.
Yeah, it has alder-like leaves. And that one, people are planting it because they're like, hey, this is a great little tree to plant, like I said, in situations where you need a little tree. You don't want a big, gigantic tree.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So people are planting it a little bit more. It has this problem, which is this one thing, but I have an issue that came up, and we're going to put a little asterisk on that. I'm going to talk about it in a second.
Ooh, a pin. Casey's putting a pin in it.
Yeah, a pin in the idea of this tree's got a problem.
Okay.
Then there is the idea that everyone seems to like the serviceberry. Like, people talk about it all the time. It's got 17 different names because everybody has like their own little thing for it. It has this lore, which you're going to tell us about in a second. And it also is a tree that has something to offer every single season of a year.
This is a good point.
It's something that a lot of landscape designers really like to see. It's got these really attractive berries in the early summertime. It's got these beautiful flowers in the early spring. It turns this like stunning orange-yellow fall color in the fall.
Right.
It grows in pretty awful soils. Some of the species grow in like really rocky places, like exposed kind of sites, and they just kind of are tough little plants. Others will grow in nice dark forests, and they'll be kind of edge trees that come out and kind of pop with their flowers, like what a dogwood would do in our area. And they grow in bog areas where it's just very moist soil. There's nothing worth a dang there, and then there'll just be a serviceberry growing right there.
Interesting. Like kicking it, doing great?
Yeah, just kicking it, just doing great. So I realized that of all the trees that we've covered, there is something that I can probably find that's like, yeah, but, you know, at the end of each thing. And there's a bunch of people who love certain trees and hate other trees, and there's everything in between. Every time we give a poor rating, we always hear from people being like, what the hell? This tree is great. You know, why'd you guys do that?
Yeah.
Which is fine. We can take the heat. We believe in ourselves, and you just keep it coming, you guys. But I don't think anyone doesn't like the serviceberry.
Wow.
It's not a tree that is going to be like, oh my God, the serviceberry, it's my top favorite tree in the entire world.
Right.
It's the middle of the road, everything like, oh, Joe Biden, oh, guy's such a lovable little guy. You know, before he was president, like no one really gave two shits about Joe Biden. No one really hated him. He was just Joe Biden, just kind of sitting there.
Right.
I'm trying to think of like another, it's like a Kia or something. Like it's not a car that everyone hates. It's not a car that everyone loves. It's not a car that everyone loves to hate.
But it also has its super fans.
Exactly. There are some super fans, but those super fans also are like, you know, not extreme people.
Right.
So it just seems to me like this is the, you know, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's the average of everything.
Sure. It's just flying under the radar. Because it doesn't have anything super unique in a good or bad way.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
That's I think is my opinion of this tree.
Interesting.
And that, I think, ultimately became the main point of focus for our talk and discussion right now.
Yes.
Is that I can think of one thing, and I can tell you what people have said about it. That's that pin.
Yes, let's go back to the pin.
Yeah, for the most part, everyone, like especially in the urban forestry kind of arboriculture area, everyone's got an opinion about everything. We've literally built an entire podcast on kind of that premise.
Damn straight.
Certainly coming from my end. And this tree, like I remember someone was talking about planting it, and some colleague of mine was like, well, yeah, but it gets that rust all over the berries. Like it's awful. It looks so bad. And I was like, who cares? Like we're not going to go eat these berries. If birds want to eat them, they totally can. They're really tiny. Like they're about the size of a like wild blueberry. Like they're not big and gigantic. They don't like create huge messes. They grow in these, you know, awful places we plant them, and they're just doing fine. They're not extraordinary, they're not awful, but they're just doing fine. So my pin is like, you know what? You can find something wrong with every single tree. You go outside, someone is going to be that naysayer who's like, nope, it's got this thing.
Yeah.
Not a good tree because this, it's got that. I think that is stupid. I'm okay with it. But I think
finding something wrong in every tree.
Yeah, just that one thing. Another colleague noted someone was giving a presentation saying we should plant all these evergreen oaks or oak-like plants, or just evergreen kind of southern Californian and southwestern species of trees up in the Pacific Northwest, because we're slowly becoming more and more of that climate, especially down here in the valley where Portland is. So we should plant these other trees, right, that are already going to be doing very well in the potential future climate of our area.
Right.
And then everyone was like, well, but that tree carries this disease. Oh, but that tree has this disease. And like naming all these little nitpicky things.
I see.
And I'm like, we're missing the bigger problem. There is this gigantic climate change issue that's like bearing down on us. Mm-hmm. If we're trying to solve it and change, plant trees, you're never going to find a perfect tree that's going to be able to be planted in this this artificial system that we've created, the planter strips.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, great. It's got that problem. Shut up. We don't care anymore.
Yeah. Also, everything is a spectrum. Like, everything has a problem.
Yeah. Maybe on one end is the tree of heaven, where it's like, okay, yeah, that tree causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Let's avoid that tree.
Right.
On the other end of that spectrum is a tree that is like super native, does really well, but is like a giant sequoia or something. So we can't plant it in these places because it'll do really well and accomplish all of our objectives, but it will also destroy the infrastructure that we've artificially said it must be within.
Let's do it, Casey.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that would be so good.
Here's what we do. We dress in all black with ski masks.
All right, yeah.
We go out in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And we have some young hip YouTuber film us.
Oh yeah.
For clout.
Obviously. For clout.
And we have a van full of giant sequoia saplings. Okay?
Okay.
And we do a real quick, I'll dig, you plant.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you dig.
Okay.
I have a bad back. You really quickly dig a hole, plant it up, put a little water on it, kiss it goodnight, and move on to the next one. Yeah. We do this all over the city.
Sounds
Casey.
amazing. Guerrilla tree planting.
Yes. By the time anyone even realizes, it'll be too late.
Yeah.
And they'll be 700 feet tall.
No one's gonna see that for another. Like, wow, it's been 2,000 years. Where did this thing come from? It's gigantic.
That's where my plan falls apart. But I think the first half is like kind of a good idea.
I think we can do it. Someone sent us a video of this guy from. He seemed like he was from Boston or New York or something, but he was living in Oakland, and he was basically just doing guerrilla planting in a park area.
Very cool.
And it was hilarious because the guy's like, yeah, the city, they kind of ran out of money. They kind of let these trees die, but they kind of planted stupid trees here, like, what's this dogwood doing here? It's just a fucking stupid dogwood. And then it was like named all these other cool trees that he had planted over the last several years that were doing really well.
Wow.
It was hilarious. It was really great. Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. Someone said we should make him, get him on the podcast. So we'll reach out. We'll see if we can find him.
Yeah. Somebody help us make that connection.
Yeah. But that sounds like a great idea, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially with the city of Portland, it has rules where if a tree is planted, it's now a regulated tree. So then if you cut it down, you have to replant a new tree.
Wow.
Yeah. But they also say you have to get a permit for it. But if a tree happens to be there and you didn't get a permit for it, they basically say, don't do that again.
This is great because, in the movies, when the investigator is like, I got to think like the killer. I need somebody who thinks like a killer, and they go to the prison and they find a killer.
Yeah,
and they're like, I need your. Well, this is just Silence of the Lambs now.
Yeah,
I need your help in thinking like this killer. This is me coming to you. You used to be on the inside.
Yeah,
you used to be a city man.
Yeah. Now I'm like, here's what you got to do.
Yes,
you help me.
You help me bend the rules.
Yeah, they're never gonna hire me ever again.
Hey, if this podcast for some reason goes away, you might need that connection.
Yeah, we'll just delete this episode and be like, yeah, no, rules are rules. Totally get it. I think that's a great idea, Alex, because there's so many things and situations where everyone they need the perfect tree, and I get the right tree for the right place. That just makes total sense. There's no reason to plant a Douglas fir underneath 30-foot high voltage power lines.
Right.
It's just completely stupid. But if there is a tree that has a bunch of benefits and then has this other thing that's it doesn't look that good, or it doesn't do very well, or something like that, we should just do it anyway, because what's the alternative? Sticking with the status quo?
Right.
Right now, the biggest thing that is on my mind with urban tree planting is for the last 200 years, all right, I'll go 100 years, we have been planting trees that are familiar to us, that are from the East Coast, that are from Europe. Most of the trees that you could see in the streets right now are not native trees. For good reason, though. I will take this quick side note. most of our native trees are goddamn gigantic over
Right.
here. So you can't plant them everywhere. Most of the big trees that we still plant from the East Coast are also too big to be planted here now because we have made the size of the planter strips too small. And this is just street trees. We'll just couch it in that for the time being. But then all these other little trees like the Amelanchier, someone would say, oh, well, it has this thing where it just doesn't look that good. We want a tree that's going to look good and do very well this whole time. And I'm kind of like, but we've planted these trees that don't do well here, and our conditions are already getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So we should plant trees that even if they do have this like little thing that goes wrong with them, we should still say, yep, you know what? It's good enough. Let's just push it through and let it happen, because otherwise we're just not really accomplishing anything. And if everyone wants those gorgeous, beautiful flowers for that one season, then great. You got those gorgeous, beautiful flowers, but the tree itself will continue to live and survive and just be okay. It may not be perfect, but it's the Serviceberry. It doesn't need to be perfect. It is just that middle of the road, you know? It's good enough. It's not the most expensive thing on the menu. It's not the cheapest thing on the menu, but it's right there in the middle. It's the French fries, you know?
Casey, I think it's a perfect time, now that I'm hungry, to get into our review of the Serviceberry. We're going to give some final parting words on this most middle of roads.
Yep.
And then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor. Casey, as our resident forage chef, we will begin with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. All right. So the Serviceberry, you know, it's a tree that kind of unexpectedly got on the docket. We're like, well, we got to do the Serviceberry. This sounds great.
Yeah.
We were reaching out to do this collaboration, and at the same time, it's just not a tree that always constantly comes onto my thoughts.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come into my thoughts often because it is just a kind of normie tree. It just kind of grows. It's an understory tree. It'll grow in the shade. It'll do this. It's just always in the shadows. It's always just kind of right over there, but never always right here. You know what I mean? So when we would want to do it, I was like, well, of course we should do it. Like, there's no reason we should not do this tree. Because of all these reasons, just because it's, you know, we got to do every single tree, so we can't just skip over one because it's kind of a, you know, Joe Schmo tree.
Sure. I mean, that itself is something special.
Exactly, and I think that's what I'm finding here. So I'm going to give the Serviceberry, and this is going to sound horrible, I'm going to give it a straight 5.0.
That's amazing.
Because it is right in the middle. It's not bad, it's not good, it's not flashy, it's not an asshole, it's not a saint. It's just a tree that just kind of does its thing, and then will give you something every single time you want it.
Yeah.
But also will never take the center stage. It's not the tree that's going to be like, put me here, I'm a Stewardia. It's like, no, I'm just right here. If you need me, let me know. If you don't, it's cool.
This ain't no white tree of Gondor.
This ain't no white tree of Gondor.
This is growing down in the business district.
Yes, exactly. It's in the business district, and it always sweeps the sidewalk in front of its house. Always.
Yeah.
That's what I think about this. Whenever you knock on the door, they always buys the chocolate.
Yeah.
But it's also never putting up a political sign, you know, in its thing, and it's never coming out and yelling at someone for parking in front of their spot, you know. And if it just does it just lives and it cruises, and it never appears to me to cause any waves.
That's great, Case.
There you go. 5.0 for the Serviceberry.
Golden cones of honor.
For the Canadian Serviceberry. The Alnus, or the native species, this is going to be 5.5.
Hey, oh, God. Hey, for the Canadian Serviceberry, should we give it like golden drops of maple syrup or something?
Oh, no.
Golden drops of syrup?
I don't think so.
We don't want to have fun with that?
I mean, we can have fun with that, but I guess I just always like to think of... you know, a borderless situation, you know?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's of Canada, but it grows everywhere.
Destroy all borders.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, 5.0. I understand that, though.
Okay.
I kind of laughed when you said 5.0 because I am feeling the same thing, Casey.
No way, Alex.
If we love giving metaphorical scores,
we do.
You know, I think for such a middle of the road tree, although, you know, I'm going to give it the middle of the road of the upper half of the scale.
Oh,
so I'm going to go.
I see.
I think I'm going to go 7.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that
good.
the right math?
Yeah, I think so.
That's halfway between 5 and 10?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to give it 7.5, and it's a very well-earned 7.5, but it's not glamorously, it's not bestowed in any sort of ritualistic or fun way.
Yeah, right.
I just hand it to it with my hand. It takes it, says thank you, and I say thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And it goes along its merry way.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a perfect, that sounds great.
And now I want to make some Serviceberry crumble.
Oh my God. I watched that video. It looks delicious.
She ended with, and I admit, I melted some extra butter and drizzled on the top and broiled it, and I was like, now we're talking.
Yes.
That sounds so fucking good.
And it is vegan, but I was the only thing I was thinking there is I would be using salted butter because there's no way that I would not use salted butter for that.
Well, she may have.
No, I think it was all vegan. I think it was vegan.
Oh,
butter.
there's no butter. That's why. Okay,
exactly.
I see.
Anyway.
Butter comes from an animal, Casey?
We don't even need to get into this right now, Alex.
We forgot to mention the origin of this folk taxonomical name.
Oh yeah. Okay, good point. Let's rewind. Let's go back. Let's act like we never gave a final say on what we think about this tree. Alex. Begin.
To my understanding, a reason that it's called Serviceberry is that during the American Revolutionary War,
okay,
or maybe earlier.
I don't know where you're going right now.
Really? I think you told me this.
I might have, and I realized I was wrong. But I certainly didn't start with that.
This is fake news.
Yeah, it's super fake news.
That it was. Wait, maybe now I'm turned around.
It wasn't
basically the ground was frozen.
Yeah.
Oh! I got it, Casey. I got it. I got it. I was thinking of the wrong kind of service. I was thinking of military service.
Gotcha. They would plant a tree every time one of our boys went off.
To the great unknown. Casey, it's because grave diggers, I think they have probably a proper name, knew that the ground was soft enough to dig a grave when the serviceberries grew.
Yeah,
because it was late spring and that the frost had melted.
Yes, so
you could have a memorial service.
Yes, and therefore it was the serviceberry.
Yes.
It turns out there's also another alternative.
I can't wait to hear it.
That there are itinerant preachers that would travel around and give church services, but in the hollers and coves of the Appalachian Mountains, they couldn't get into them because they were too wet or muddy or snowy.
Sure.
So they'd have to wait until the spring came. When the serviceberries bloomed, they would be blooming when they came to give their services. 3
different kinds of services.
Yes.
And
we're only talking about 2, though.
Well, church service.
Yeah.
Memorial service.
Yeah.
And military service.
Yeah, but the military service, I don't know where that came from.
That was a gaff.
Ah, yes, I see. There you go. Now, so here's the problem. I looked further into that.
Oh, no.
It turns out that, as we noted at the very beginning of this episode, Alex, unfortunately, that name, Serviceberry, comes from sorbus, because someone said it looks like the sorbus, which is the tree, the Latin term of that tree that we talked about, the rowan, the white beam, all those, in the genus Sorbus. So I think they found that this term already existed and was in common use in the 1500s, which is before there were the colonists that actually would have been in the hollers and coves of Appalachia or even anywhere in the northeastern United States.
I see.
Looking to bury someone in the wintertime. So the name actually comes from sorbus, which is that other tree that has the fruit that looks very similar, and it's not from service. So those are afterthoughts where someone said, why do you call this serviceberry? And then someone said, well, when these people give services, that's when this tree. And so it all comes together and it works out just fine.
Yeah.
But
it is fake news, though.
It is totally fake news, yeah.
We're going to get flagged by Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, Snopes is going to be like, not this one.
Casey, it is time for our completely arbitrary Q&A.
Let's do a Q&A, Alex.
Casey, this week, our question comes from Malcolm Samard. Do you think there's any relation to Suzanne?
Honestly, yes, I do. Somewhere, deep down,
That's a very exciting notion.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Hi, Casey and Alex. I was listening to your episode on the Tree of Heaven and was wondering if an invasive tree could be part of succession.
Oh.
For example, could a field of common hawthorns, semi-invasive where I am, the Vancouver Island, Casey.
Yep.
Where you just came back from. Could a field of common hawthorns eventually be succeeded by native trees and eventually shaded out? Or will it remain a field of common hawthorn for eternity? Thank you.
Is very good.
And hope you two enjoyed your summer. Thanks, Malcolm. We did.
Yeah.
We also hope you enjoyed your summer. Casey, what do you think? I'll be honest. I don't really totally understand the question. I understand the pieces involved. I know what succession is.
Sure.
I know what invasive means, but I guess I don't understand the technicalities here.
Gotcha. Well, let's go through this real fast. So give us a quick rundown of what succession is.
Succession is an
Emmy Award-winning show on HBO.
It's a great show, of which I'm waiting patiently for the next season. Yes. It's one I don't think I've ever tried to do it out loud, but I'll try, Casey.
Okay.
Succession means the order in which trees repopulate an area that has been clear cut.
Yes, that's perfect. I think more broadly, a disturbance of any sort.
Yeah, maybe a fire or a flood.
Exactly.
Landslide.
Anything that kind of wipes the slate clean, so to speak. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's exactly. And I would also broaden it to say it's the sort of plants that do it. It doesn't necessarily need to be trees.
Oh, sure.
But of course, if we're talking about forestry, then we end up talking about trees mostly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly right. And then, so an invasive species, that's just one that is grows and naturalizes itself in a place that is not its native habitat, right? So in this case, generally speaking, native or non-native invasive plants, which to be very clear, there's a distinction. There can be non-native, non-invasive plants. So a non-native invasive plant like the English hawthorn in the Great Pacific Northwest will seed itself in disturbed areas. Generally, you're not going to find it in an intact forest anywhere. Like, it just doesn't grow there. It either can't get itself established or there's not a seed close by. It's near where there's people, where there's, horticultural trees planted, that kind of thing. So if you have a whole group of these trees that grows in a disturbed area and they take over, maybe let's say it's a field that used to grow hay, no one's done anything with it for a couple of years, and now it starts to grow all these little hawthorn plants. Then the question that Malcolm's asking is, would you count that as a part of succession, or would that be just like taken out and is it just going to stay this hawthorn field for the rest of its entire existence? And I think the answer is everything is a part of succession.
Yeah.
So if you are planting the native hawthorn, and then slowly but surely maple trees grow, then oak trees, then Douglas fir, then ponderosa pine, and you get this, full old growth forest over 500 years, you're probably going to see a few hawthorns that have kind of eked out in existence and are kind of living on the fringes. But you would certainly see that everything in the middle would slowly transform into the later successional habitats, so the later successional areas. You'd have the intense shade of a bunch of Douglas firs shade out all the things underneath. As those slowly die, and then new light kind of pops through, new trees will start to grow up in that area. You'll develop the complex understory and mid-stories and all these things. So whatever starts generally does not stay around for maybe more than 100 years or so, unless it's a Douglas fir. They're kind of one of the weird exceptions to that rule, where they're an early successional tree and a late successional tree. Okay, so when we're talking early successional, it's like the trees that outcompete in the beginning. Yes, right? They rush in and colonize that area. Right. Late successional is the long players, the trees that end up end up kind of winning out in the end. Yeah, they grow really slowly. They just kind of go bloop, 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 bloop. And then like a European beech or an American beech, they just over time grow in the shade of other things and wait for those other things to either die or wait for themselves to find an opening and then shoot up and take over. Got it. Yeah. So in this case, the hawthorns would just be now considered an invasive species that has moved in and colonized a disturbed area. And if the rest of the natural system is kind of intact and these other trees start to come in, then over time, theoretically, the succession process will continue marching forward the same as it would with anything else, as long as the seeds and everything else are growing there.
Yeah.
So it could be that there's no other seeds, or the trees are so far away that it's going to take another 100 years for the Douglas fir to actually move in from maybe surrounding areas. It could happen immediately. Who knows?
Cool.
So I would say yes. The biggest thing would be if it's a disturbed area and it's just no longer a part of a natural system. In that case, the succession is not the same as that natural system. So in a city, a vacant lot next door, downtown, that will not be part of succession until succession is brought in and marches in from the wilds and takes over the city again.
Okay.
There's just too many invasive species to where there's no native processes really happening anymore.
Got it.
So there you go. It's a great question. It's a really good question.
Thank you so much, Malcolm, for your question. If you have a question about trees, email us at arbortrarypod@gmail.com. That's ARBORTRARY pod@gmail.com. Join us on Patreon if you wish to support this podcast. Right. Of course, we're always happy to have you listen, but if you want to give that little extra, patreon.com/arbortrarypod. You can join the Arboretum, get 2 bonus episodes a month, or the Cone of the Month Club, get a unique die-cut cone sticker illustrated by an independent artist of great talent every single month. It's a lot of fun. And lots of Patreon news coming very soon, Casey.
Yes, we do.
When I say soon, because it's easy to say soon and you mean like 6 months.
Yeah. Right.
When I say soon, I am meaning 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're going to have a big old announcement.
It's going to be very exciting.
You and I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we sure do. Get started.
Casey Clapp.
Alex, before we leave, I have one question.
Hit me.
Well, I just typed in what I think the answer to this question is, but what are we going to name this tree? I know we're calling it the Serviceberry, but you know what? Why don't we elevate it? We can call it the bilberry. We can call it the chuckleberry. We can call it the sugar plum. We can call it the shadbush, the shad-blow.
You mean in the episode title?
Yeah, what are we going to call this?
Oh, God.
I know.
I think, I have a take.
Bilberry.
Obviously.
It's with one L, which is even better.
Bilberry.
Yeah.
I personally am voting Serviceberry.
Middle of the road, just like a Serviceberry.
Hey, what's more fitting?
Well, you know what? I'm going to write shad-blow because I have the power to type right now.
Let's confuse people and use like 12 different names across all of our platforms.
The name of this episode is just going to be AKA.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Completely Arbortrary. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Completely Arbortrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp.
Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals.
And you can support the podcast at patreon.com/arbortrarypod.
And find additional readings at completelyarbortrary.com. Thanks for listening.